There are a lot of skeletons in Star Wars' closet, I think. Hey everyone, this is Digital Charcuterie. Thanks for stopping by. My name is James. Really appreciate you being here with me today. We're talking Skeleton Crew, and if you like Skeleton Crew and Star Wars, or if you're on the fence about it, hit that subscribe button because we talk about it on this channel all the time. I really enjoy this series, Skeleton Crew, and I was super excited to sit down and watch episode 4. I know nothing about ATTIN or whatever it was called, and I gotta be honest with you, it was probably my least favorite episode so far, which shocked me because we're at the halfway point, and I was kind of expecting it to kind of not blow my mind, but be kind of explosive in a lot of ways. It was directed by the Daniels. I was expecting quite a bit from this episode, and it was a bit of a letdown. I will say this one, going into the episode, a lot of people were expecting a lot from NEEL, and that NEEL was going to be their favorite character, and everybody loved the way NEEL looked and was expecting a lot from him. And this was NEEL's episode, and everything everybody ever hoped for NEEL definitely came through in this one. I thought he stole the show. He was excellent in every scene that he was in, and I was all on board with everything NEEL did, and even his ending. Like, it built up to his grand ending, which ended in a heroic way, and then also, in my opinion, a very funny way. I had a good little chuckle at it. Not a laugh out loud, not an LOL moment, but it was a nice little chuckle that I had at it. And this one, at it. This episode, of course, was once again, about all the kids trying to find their way back to at it. They got directions from Kim in the last episode, who remains one of the best characters of the new era of Star Wars. At least the design was phenomenal. Really like the character herself as well. But they have these directions, have to get back to their home planet of At, and then it turns out that they are on a wrong one. They're on At Acorn or something. At Akron is what they're actually on. They don't know that right away. I should say spoilers if you have not seen the first 3 episodes of Skeleton Crew, the first 4 episodes of Skeleton Crew. Hit the pause button, go back, watch them, come back here. I'll see you in just over an hour or whatever. But I really enjoyed the episode. They go to At Akron, and they're on there, and they realize it's kind of the exact same as At Atten, but demolished and desolate, and this is like the pre-apocalyptic world. This is the Mad Max universe of At, and they run into a group of kids, and I was like, what's going on here? This is like Lord of the Flies, but there are adults, and they meet them, and they decide that they have to be warriors, but they tell them that there are maps that can find them throughout the galaxy, and they say, well, if you want those maps, you have to train with us, you have to be these guardians, you have to fight our attackers. While this is happening, we leave John and Smee over at the ship, and they encounter the other tribe right there. This is all tribal, this planet, and John ends up out. What happens with John and the other group, if it turns out to be accurate, for me, it felt like a cop-out. I was kind of hoping for a little bit more, but he just kind of pays them off in Old Republic credits, which why would that even matter on this planet so much? So I feel like there is more than we're getting there, but that's besides the point. Hopefully we'll learn something later on. So he goes back, he kind of rescues the kids, and he goes, the kids are with me. I brought back your livestock, you give me the kids. And so they go to the tower, and where they're from, no one's allowed in this tower. So they go all the way up, and when they get up this thing, I'm anticipating the Colonel guy from the Matrix to show up and be like, oh, yes, of course, I have created all of your life. I wasn't really sure what to show up. But what there's coordinates on all these pillars on where they're going. There's all these pillars have that Akron and all these other planets, the ones that Kim mentioned a week previous, and they have all of them. But then you see the Atten one. And before we get to that, I got to mention that the Smee droid mentions the entire episode. The episode's name is based on what he says. He ain't never heard of an Atten. And he says this over and over again in the episode too, almost ad nauseum for. I was like, well, okay, I get it. Like, this droid is a droid, I get it. But they're really pushing it home. And then you realize at the end that the coordinates are wiped out. And they're like, somebody destroyed these coordinates. Who would have done it? And Smee admits that it was him, that he did it. And they ask why. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And eventually they override. Fern knows how to override his system. So they override the system. And he explains like, oh no, my captain told me to destroy it all. And not let anybody know about Atten, and then I'm not allowed to even know about Atten or tell anybody about Atten. And then furthermore, if anybody asks me about Atten, I am to kill them. And then the whole sequence comes about Smee trying to kill the kids, and then NEEL kind of distracts him, and he goes towards NEEL, and then Jude Law turns off Smee, and NEEL faints and the episode ends. And that's the gist of the episode. I think this is an episode for me. Look, like I said, it was the weakest one I found but it reminded me a lot of like the space whale episode of Rebels. And if you saw Rebels, you know that there was a space whale episode, and it was like a meh episode. It was okay at best, and it kind of felt very much like filler. And we're like, what are we doing here for 22 minutes about these space whales? But they become a major part in seasons to come and storylines to follow. And even in the Ahsoka show, the space whales show up. So they become a thing. So this episode kind of reminded me of that, where I'm like, is there something, a bigger play here with these tribes, with the specific tribe and whatnot, and where are we going with it? And that's why I even though it was my least favorite, I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt of next week's episode and the week following. I feel like this show, one thing they've done really well, I did a video on it earlier, is they have the mystery really, really handled well. And I think the questions that they pose to the audience, they have the answers for. And I think that's very important, because if they know where they're going and they know why they're going there, then me as someone who's like, okay, that might not have been my favorite, I can respect and appreciate that there's a purpose for it, because I have faith in knowing that they know where they're going, that we're going to get all the answers, because they start answering little questions along the way, right? We learn more about Jod Nanowood, about Jude Law. He has 3 names, but he kind of gives a little bit more information. At ATTIN, we learn more about that, how there's multiple planets just like them, but they've all been hidden, but most of them have been destroyed. So we're learning all these, like all the little details we're getting. And now even the ship that was on at ATTIN that Smee was on, I'm calling him Smee, is SM-33. Even though he was on that ship, there's more to that ship than meets the eye, and we're slowly getting those pieces of information given to us. So that's why I am fully on board with this series, in terms of I know that they have a plan at place here, and we're going to get the questions to these answers are coming. Maybe not certainly. Maybe we have to go through an episode like this to understand, to have a greater understanding of what they're trying to say to us. And that's why I like it. But again, this was Neil's episode. Last week was KB. This week was Neil's. And I thought Neil delivered on all cylinders. I really appreciate him. He had a little like a romance going on here with, I think her name was Hannah. He had that romance going on. We learned more about him and his family, how his little brother can beat him up, and he plays the sport. I think it was like this on the sport. It's just kind of ridiculous, but it was an enjoyable ridiculous. But he needs to be a warrior, and he steps up at the right time, at the right moment. He's not the character that you anticipate stepping up, which kind of has me thinking that at the end of the series now, he's going to be one of the characters, or the only character who might actually want to leave at ATTIN, who might leave the planet. I think Wim's going to stick behind, but it might be Neil. We'll do a little there. I said on Rebels Come podcast earlier that I kind of feel like it's going to be the American Graffiti ending, where the one who you think is going to stay ends up leaving, and the one who wanted to leave is going to end up staying and sticking around. So that's kind of where I feel like we're going with that. But again, this wasn't my favorite. I thought the directing for the most part was handled pretty well. I didn't really like when Smee kind of went ballistic on the kids. That was directed a little too B-movie, a little too 50s sci-fi for me. Wasn't really into the lens choices there and the way they framed it, but it didn't ruin it for me. It didn't take me out of it. In fairness, like, it did actually take me out of it. Didn't ruin the episode for me, though. Like I said, it was my least. But that part, like, as we got to that part, as they went up the tower, that's when I was like, this is what I'm on this show for. Like, this is the adventure that I want. Like, the side quest is fine, but the adventure is what I wanted. And I really enjoyed the adventure that we were getting with the kids. And when we learned more from Smee about their home planet, and how Jod was the one, like, Jod turning off SM-33 to kind of save them. Like, Neil distracting and Jod turning off. I feel like this is all going to play out down the road, and there's going to be more explanations, and he might use that against the kids going forward, because they are kids, and he feels like he can outsmart them, dupe them. If he'd be like, well, I saved your lives, like, you trust me, I saved your lives, and then he can screw them over later on, because I think there's more of that going on. He was stealing stuff. I love the Easter egg, built the Life Day Christmas special Easter egg, comes back to haunt all Star Wars. I'm a George Lucas mostly, and Star Wars fans again, that showed up, and then the Old Republic credits playing a part in this as well. And I think John Underwood wants more of that. There's more of that coming, and he's going to use what he just did, like him saving the kids. He's going to use that going forward in the future. But I think Fern's going to get an episode now, and I think Wim's coming up, and maybe John Underwood, because one other thing with this episode was it very much underutilized John Underwood and Jude Law in that role. And watching it, I'm just like, why have Jude Law here at all? Like, so far, he's not in the first episode. I mean, he is in the first episode, but he's under a mask. Second episode, he shows up at the very end and removes his hood and says, can you keep a secret? Third episode, he has a big part, and now he's relegated to basically a prop for the most part. He's with Smee on the sidelines for most of it. So I'm really curious what they're gonna do in the home stretch now with his character going forward. But we know that there's some Sif writing coming up. There's things coming up that really excite me. So I'm looking forward to the show. Again, this was probably the weakest of the 4 episodes, but that's to be expected. There's always one little bump in the road. They're like, that wasn't my favorite. We'll see what happens. Didn't hate it, obviously, but it was just one that I'm like, if this was a binge watching show, this would be the one that you get through to get to the next episode. That's what it felt like. But Neil saved the day when he needed to, and he ended it on a great note when he faints. And I think it was Wim who says he fainted, and then it just cuts to the credits. I was like, brilliant, absolutely brilliant, really like that. So those are my thoughts on episode 4 Skeleton Crew. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. You like it, you hate it, you're gonna stick around for the next 4. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Give us a like and a subscribe, and until next time, may the force of others be with you.